Hey, what's up guys, Rev here. So today we have another round of Twitter users treating fictional characters better than real-life human beings, and we have one of my favorite genres featured today, and that is a call-out thread directed towards an artist for supposedly making problematic artwork. And as per usual with those types of threads, they end up backfiring and the artist gains a lot of support in the process. And we're going to start off with that story right here, but it starts with this image. So to make this clear, I don't think this poster right here made this meme. They're more just sharing their disgust and confusion surrounding it. So it says, "You can kill the man, but not the idea," with a picture of Jeffrey Epstein. So in case you don't know who he was a man who owned an entire private island dedicated to sex trafficking children. They are comparing him to people who play these video games like Splatoon, Genshin Impact, Persona, and so on. So besides the absolutely disgusting connection between this vile, evil human being and those who play video games, the games that they list are absolutely laughable. Like, besides the ones I just mentioned, you have ones on here like Kingdom Hearts. Like, what is so crazy about playing Kingdom Hearts? But they also included, in the original person who made this meme, included Xenoblade. And that will be relevant to the rest of this video. Now meet the main protagonist of the rest of this video, an artist named Plum. So they made a quote retweet of that meme saying, "People on this site just be posting anything, huh?" And then down at the bottom saying, "Oh, the original poster didn't make that image, but whoever did clearly spent a good chunk of time making it and shared it in a public space. Wow." Now apparently some people saw this very fair criticism of this meme and they got angry, including this user right here who made an entire thread calling out this artist. It says, "Yeah, I'm just gonna come out and say it. Please unfollow June Plums. She has said some very questionable tweets that are either incestuous or promote lolly/Shotokan into Xenoblade art. I personally would not want that in this community." So again, just like a lot of the call out threads we see when it involves the VTubing scene, the person making it is a giant narcissist who thinks they speak on behalf of an entire community. We see this with like VTweeters, right? They don't even make actual content, and yet they speak on behalf of the VTubing community when they say X, Y, and Z is problematic and not welcome in their community. Same thing here. And what's the crime that this artist is doing? Well, they're making artwork, and they know the difference between fiction and reality. And a couple spoiler alerts. Number one, this artist doesn't even consider themselves a part of the Xenoblade community, and also most of their work, in fact, the majority of their work's not safe for work. It's completely safe for work, the majority of what they make. So it's very weird. But here's an example of one of the supposedly problematic pieces of art that they've made. So the person who made the thread said, "And then recently I saw one of their Shulk x Melia art, and it honestly looks awful. Like, the colors and shading on this look super flat, and Shulk's chalice is clearly unfinished. Like, come on, if you are so into this ship, at least put some effort into it all." Now, just like a lot of other call-out threads made by content creators against artists, they stoop as low as to criticize the artwork because they need to have a justification to validate their disliking of this artist. So they resort to saying that their art is bad. And honestly, objectively looking at their art, I think it's pretty good. It may not be your thing, but I think it's pretty good. And a lot of times, I mean, on this channel alone, we've talked about a lot of artists who have come out and exposed themselves as antis or said really bad things on Twitter. And in those situations, reasonable people can look at them and say, hey, they make some very good art. Too bad they have a bad attitude or say some ridiculous things. It doesn't change the fact that their art is good. So this is just like a low blow grasping for straws. And also like this whole conversation about not safe for work, content being created by this artist. Like, I'm a person who will censor anything. Like the smallest bit of anime titty, if I'm afraid it's going to get my video flagged and demonetized. But like on this one, I don't even care. It's not even anything worth concern for me as the person making this video. But moving on, they would respond and give an update here. The person who created the thread, they said sad LOL with a screenshot of Plum blocking them. Because go figure, the artist who was the subject of your harassment thread would go ahead and block you because you're annoying and directing harassment towards them. And we really just got full mask off right here. So the thread creator would reply to that saying, keep unfollowing / reporting, by the way. So let's take a step back here. We're talking about trying to deplatform this artist. Meanwhile, this person makes an entire thread directing harassment towards them and even tells people to keep false reporting them and trying to deplatform them by abusing the report system. So if I've ever seen anything that represents targeted harassment, it's this entire thread, which ironically is trying to call someone out for being problematic. I mean, this whole thing is textbook targeted harassment that's against Twitter's TOS. But nonetheless, we saw an appearance from the artist named Gigi in the replies. You might recognize them, and I'll remind you as to why in a second. So they said, all you could have done was block and ignore if you didn't like what you see. You didn't have to criticize their art skill, but you went ahead and did it to validate your point of view just because you don't like their content. This was unnecessary and targeted harassment. And the original creator of the thread says, listen, Gigi, this was just something I wanted to get out yesterday. It will be over with for the rest of the week. You know, it just goes to show you with antis, they're so impulsive. They always let their intrusive thoughts win, and they have to lash out at people when they see content they don't like. They can't just block someone and move on. They have to make an entire call-out thread directing hate towards a person because it's not enough for them to simply ignore it. They want to be validated in their disliking of a certain set of content or a content creator. And Gigi would reply to that saying, that doesn't make it okay. They weren't harming anyone real, and it wasn't even explicit not safe for work content. But whatever, you do you, since you're already blocked by them. And like I said, you might remember Gigi. They're an artist who makes a lot of Xenoblade related artwork. And a few months ago, they were in one of my videos because they made this tweet comparing people who are okay with the bear scene in Baldur's Gate 3 with those who support something like fan service and anime related games. So they said, why do people scream and cry over anime girls showing skin and then play Baldur's Gate 3 with a smile on their face? And of course, people somehow got mad about this because anime girl skin is somehow worse than the Baldur's Gate hanky-panky scene with the bear. Okay? It's a crazy thing. And you saw people saying stuff that really reflects the original thread creator we're talking about today, saying, they replied to Gigi saying, you should treat fictional characters like real people because at the end of the day, how do you think the people who would happen to act, look, or see themselves in that character are going to feel when they see people treating that character like an object just because of the way that they are? Holy schizophrenia, dude. This tweet, I remember this one from back in August. 175 quotes, 1 like. Brutal ratio. But we saw something that we're going to see again with today's video. After that, Gigi was being harassed for their artwork, where this person said, I have a feeling the character on your profile picture is a sexualized child, which makes sense because you draw sexualized children, weirdo. And here's their evidence of Gigi's art. Fully clothed, busty anime women. And this person is self-reporting that they're thinking about children when they see this stuff. But we would see similar things happen with our main protagonist here, Plum, where a user would reply to one of their tweets saying, well, people think you draw CP, but what I want to say is someone dirty inside will consider everything related to effing. As per usual with these sorts of things, Zoomers are the hardest people to understand in the world. Their sentence structure is mind-numbing to try to read. But nonetheless, you can see, despite all of the backlash the original thread got, people making fun of them, calling out their harassment, it still does the damage, you know? It still has some people out there supporting it and believing it. And this user now is accusing Plum of drawing CP, which is always a ridiculous thing to say. So Plum would respond with this quote retweet saying, yeah, that's blatant misinformation. Anyone with a brain can go check my Pixiv and see there's barely any not safe for work. You can check this whole profile's history and there's nothing. And they would go on to say in the replies, also, drawn CSEM will never be a thing. There's no such thing. I hate there's people dumb enough to unironically think that. There is no child being exploited in not safe for work lolly show art. You're allowed to think it's vile, but it'll never be CSEM. However, I do admit I retweet not safe for work arts on my private account. However, what I do on my private account is no one's business other than the people who are following. And everything they're saying here are points that we routinely make on this channel. I mean, it is completely okay, referring to the original person who made the call out thread, it's okay that you find certain types of fictional content to be gross, vile, whatever. The only mature response is to block it, ignore it, and move on with your life. It is not reasonable to now use that as a justification to harass people over fictional content, and it's certainly not a justification to slander people in watered down terms to things that they don't mean. And I think some of their other responses to this drama was pretty smart. So Plum would actually retweet some of their older artwork that was getting called out or used as evidence that they're problematic. You can see it's very cute art, very nice stuff. And they would make this series of tweets that I think really sums this up and puts a bow on it. So it says, I'm free to draw whatever I want. It's simple. Don't like me or what I am, just block me. I don't want clout. I want to draw the things I like. Feel free to be disgusted with me. I don't care. Whatever I like does not harm anyone, as they are fictional characters. Again, block me and never interact with my content. You are not stopping me from what I love to draw. Or at least I will block you myself, so go ahead and waste your time on your little moral high ground, I guess. You're not getting through me. I am not kneeling to no one. At the end, I will keep drawing as if ever nothing happened, and I will keep drawing forever and forever if possible. So I will be doing that. Honestly, I got nothing to add here. That is a very good response to all of this backlash. And, as per usual in this situation, I will put a link to this artist's Twitter account. Feel free to check out their artwork, give some likes, leave some nice comments, and consider giving them a follow, because we love to see situations like this where a call-out thread backfires. I've already seen this artist gain around 1,000 followers as a result of the call-out thread. And, as much as I wish they didn't have to go through this in the first place, it's always nice to see a situation like this turn into something positive for the artist who clearly really enjoys art, and it's more of a passion to them than some sort of like a business or something they want clout from, which is great to see. It's a really nice way of looking at someone's hobby, and, it's good to support people like this, artists like this. So now we're going to move on to another thread. This was getting a lot of attention. This was something posted on Halloween itself. Let me just read this tweet. It says, "Today I was reminded of how awful and cruel kids can be to other kids. Dante was so proud of his costume and wore it to school for the costume contest that he has won 2 years in a row. And a bunch of kids made fun of him, picked on him, and even ruined his costume and broke it apart while he was wearing it, causing him to phone Nikki to come pick him up because he didn't want to be there anymore. Their reasons were because the character is from an anime, and anime is for losers. I am heartbroken for him. He is so upset he doesn't even want to go trick-or-treating tonight, and he just wants to hide in the house. All I want to do is break something." So if you think these mean comments are just limited to social media with these younger generations, you are wrong, and this post proves it right here. If you think the younger generation that is full of yikes type stuff, where they think everything is cringe and worthy of harassment, especially when you like things like anime, that's going to transcend into real life too. And this is proof of that. And it's just so sad to see a younger generation still bullying people for things like liking anime. How many times have you seen people say, oh, you were bullied as a kid for liking anime? No, that was just you. It's because you were a weirdo or a bad person. No. We're seeing people always generationally bullied for liking things like anime, and it's sad to see this continuing in younger generations like this. And, again, it's not just the kids, it's full-grown adults on Twitter.com. So in the hidden replies, you see some of these absolutely unhinged, delusional responses to this kid being bullied for his costume. And it's not just younger people doing this. You can see people saying, oh, in my generation, I would have toughened up a little bit. Like, so ridiculous. It was such a cool cosplay, and honestly, it had a lot of work put into it. It came out great. This kid was probably very happy to come to school to show it off, and then gets bullied just because it's anime related. It sucks, and it sucks for that kid, and it's just too bad. But moving on, there's been so many things going on. We're hitting some sort of there's got to be like a tipping point, right, where things are getting ridiculous. So I saw this, worth a quick talk. We see many accounts reporting on this, saying Homer will no longer choke Bart in The Simpsons as times have changed. So this is a running gag on The Simpsons where Homer chokes Bart. It's been there since the first season. It's continued. And whether you think that's a tired joke or not, whatever. But this idea that times have changed is the reason we need to get rid of this. Number one, are you implying that choking children was a normal thing like a couple years ago? That finally we've understood as a society we can't choke your own children? Like, that's a very weird message they're sending. But honestly, this idea that like fiction always has to tell you what's right and wrong, that's really concerning, that people need to understand, or will only understand something's bad if it's told to them that it's bad, or removed entirely from fictional content because it might rub people the wrong way. Anyone who sees this and thinks this justifies any sort of real life counterpart is not well, okay? We don't need to cater fictional work to people like that. And I saw another thread that was just like the way people get angry about the silliest things. So this thread got a lot of unhinged responses. I'm going to focus on one for the purposes of this video. Are you really a fan of a character if there isn't a PNG of them that you absolutely hate with all your being? And this one got a lot of attention. It's from the Amazing Spider-Man comic. And this person is molding over a cover that I believe is over a decade old. And the reason they're mad about this is because Mary Jane is attractive in this. And ironically, to the dismay of many people like this character was designed after its creator's wife, which is, you know, an absolute W move on that person's part. But nonetheless, they're angry because, well, she's bustier, she's attractive, and they can't handle that. Despite the fact that actual fans really like this design, but people on Twitter who really probably don't give much of a care for the franchise itself will complain over a decade about it. It's like their personal 9/11. And I'm not even getting into the mess that's happening with the transition to Miles becoming the main feature of the franchise. That's a whole nother topic of discussion for another day, perhaps. But yeah, that has been our trip down the nightmare that is Twitter. A lot of people acting absolutely deranged over fictional content, but hey, what's new? And all we can do is make content out of them. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please share all of your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time.